Good morning, everyone. I'm Sonal Khetapal, editor for SMEs at Financial Express Online. Digital today is seen as a panacea for all problems with small businesses, whether it is their scaling up strategy, building resilient businesses, or even de-risking the operations. Technology has become the go-to solution. Today, we have with us Anna Green, Head of Small and Medium Businesses, Asia Pacific and Japan at Amazon Web Services. Her career focus has been to lead international businesses through complex digital, cultural, and transformational change. Prior to joining AWS, Anna was the CEO of Australia New Zealand Bank in the Philippines, and prior to that, she was the CEO in Laos. She's a qualified lawyer and has practiced corporate law in top-tier firms in Sydney and London. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much. It is my pleasure to join you today.
And I would request you to help us set us the context of what is the scope of work that AWS does with SMEs in India. Any numbers you can share? Because considering we know that AWS had made this very popular announcement in January 2020 about investing 1 billion in India to digitally enable 10 million MSMEs and also enabling e-commerce exports worth $10 billion and creating 1 million jobs in India by 2025. So over to you.
Yes, and I think it's wonderful that you know those numbers, Sonal. But for me, let me give some context on SMBs. And I run the business across Asia, Pacific, and Japan. So I actually have a really good context of what small and medium enterprises are doing across that whole region. And what I can tell you is that the opportunity and indeed that the market in that space is really huge. We have upwards of 135 million SMEs across Asia, Pacific, and Japan. But to speak to India specifically, SMBs really form the backbone of the economy in India. India is home to around 63 plus million SMEs, and they employ 120 million people. And what that means is that about 45% of overall exports from India are coming from SMEs. So in terms of an Indian conversation, you're talking about most of the companies who are doing business in the market. Now, AWS's footprint in that context in India, as you've already pointed out, is really material. We understand that they are the engine of growth for the economy. We also understand that they need help as they want to build and grow in a digital context. So in 2020, January 2020, Amazon announced an additional investment of $1 billion to digitally enable 10 million SMEs and also to enable e-commerce exports, which are worth about $10 billion, and create 1 million additional jobs in India by 2025. So that by itself should tell you just how committed that we are as an organisation to helping business grow in a digital context. We're actually on track to fulfil those commitments. Since inception, Amazon has digitised cumulatively 2.5 million SMBs. So we're already doing that. And we've driven exports of worth $3 billion and created 1 million jobs in India. So we are doing so much across that ecosystem of businesses. And what we hear from those business owners is that what they really want us to help them do is to save money, to help them to scale, and to make sure that they are secure as they start to build their businesses online. So for us, it's more than just about building a world-class infrastructure. We want to help our businesses actually to learn how to do business and to be successful doing business online.
Last 2-3 years have seen a lot of uncertainties. Of course, pandemic is one of the biggest ones, and even now, there is the whole conversation about recession that is going on. Inflation is there. So, how has in your, if you could share some anecdotal experience on how the uptake of cloud computing, specifically because that's the focus area, has changed, and how are SMBs they view the technology, and what is your sense about it?
Yes, well, I think we all know that the last 2 years have brought about immense change in our business environment, as you rightly point out, we're now looking into some very different macroeconomic conditions. But just speaking to the last 2 years, there was a McKinsey report that was done quite recently, which has told us that companies have accelerated the digitization of their customer and their supply chain interactions by threefold, by up to 3 or 4 years, because of what's happened around the pandemic. So we've really seen an acceleration in the change in processes and operations, and it's made things happen more quickly. Things that would have happened over maybe a 6 or a 10-year time horizon have now happened in 2 to 3 years because of COVID, because it's shown the world both that it's possible to work from home and also that the necessity to digitize your business is just paramount. So we've seen a complete shift in the way that businesses think about using technology. And I think the other point to note is that SMEs were really the worst hit enterprises during the pandemic. So if you imagine they had a complete change in consumer behaviour, they had disruptions in their day-to-day operations, they couldn't necessarily rely on physical assets the way that they used to. So complete change in mindset from SME customers themselves. So we saw that change. And what that meant is that people who otherwise may not have been technologically determined or thinking about a technology change to the business are now doing so, and they're doing so quickly. And actually, a report that we recently saw from NASSCOM in India has highlighted that 60% of SMBs have begun using the cloud, and that by 2025, SMBs are expected to account for between 28 and 30% of the cloud market, which, again, not something that anyone would have thought about. Like that, we would always, or historically, had thought of that as an enterprise conversation. But now it's very much starting to become the stronghold of small and medium businesses thinking of ways to do business on a digital platform.
These numbers are certainly phenomenal. So, from your perspective, what are the kind of SMBs? Because you talk to SMBs across the economy, across economies. So, which are the kind of SMBs that are able to make this transition, to digital far easier than others? So, is it founder specific? Is it sector specific? Is it probably location specific? Because even in, if you're in a metro vis-a-vis probably some remote locations. So, please share your experience on that front.
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about working with SMEs is that they are across vertical, they're across industry, they're everywhere. But there are a few key things that we see for SMEs who are successful in a digital journey that we can say resonate across all of the different geos in Asia Pacific and Japan. Regardless of where you are, we see that SMEs that do these 5 things probably do well or better in a digital transformation. The first one is that they actually usually have a founder or a CEO or a line of business owner who is fostering a mindset that helps the organisation to become more agile. And what that means is that they're preparing their staff to be resilient. They're realising that COVID has changed the environment for everyone, and they're creating a culture of, okay, we can't do it this way, we have to do it this way. So it's a mindset shift that we see. And then we have a really strong agenda around top-down support. So what we have observed in SMBs, and in fact in all businesses, that any organisation that goes on a journey, a digital journey, must have senior leadership support, and it has to come top-down. There have to be clear directions from that leader in terms of expectations and in terms of what they expect their teams to do as they're going on the digital journey. Then we also see measurable KPIs. So businesses that actually create specific targets and goals and cascade them down throughout the whole organisation do much better when they're trying to change the culture of the way they do business to become digital. And they have short, medium and long-term goals. The fourth one is investing in upskilling in digital skills. So we have seen, we recently had an alpha beta study which was published that said there's going to be a 7x increase in the requirement for digital skills by 2025. 7x, which means everybody literally who is working in a business now will have to upskill themselves around digital technology and particularly cloud skills as businesses build and grow. And then finally, you need to find the right partners. So again, the SMBs who are doing it well are doing it because they've got an ecosystem of people around them who are helping them. So obviously we at AWS, care a lot about our customers. We're customer obsessed. We are one of the partners in the ecosystem, but we also have over 100,000 partners in our partner network who are really invested in helping our SMB customers build. And we see that where SME customers build a ecosystem or an environment of partners who are invested in helping them, that's where they see success. So I know that's a bit of a general answer. I know you were probably asking for a question, but I think what's most helpful for your listeners is to understand where SMEs are successful, how they do it. And it's those 5 steps that we see being really impactful for SMEs.
So I have 2 questions. The first one would be, because a lot of flex scaling there's a lot of cost involved. And, considering SMBs are always, there's always a resource crunch they face. So, what should their strategy be? Or are there some digital skills that they can prioritize, or, they should just go all out at once? Because considering investment is an issue, so how should they go about it?
Yeah, what I would first say is that AWS has spent a lot of time thinking about this problem. And as a result of that, we've actually been really intentional in addressing the digital skills shortage. But let's just give your viewers a bit of a context on what that looks like right now. So talent is just the biggest challenge in the market right now for all businesses. And you do need talent that have digital skills in order to transform successfully. So the study that I was speaking about earlier, the Alpha Beta study, we surveyed 527 SMB employees in India, and interesting results. We heard that only 72% of them right now are training their staff at least once a year with technical skills, despite 98% of them going, we really need to train our staff with technical skills. So there's a gap there. They know they have to do it, but to your point, maybe it's not front of mind. Maybe they're not focusing on it because the costs or whatever it is that they are concerned about. And so again, just to speak to what we as an organisation are doing, we are addressing the skill shortage ourselves by training people. So we've actually already trained 2.5 million people across Asia Pacific and Japan with cloud skills since 2017. And we're actually really investing in India by creating country-specific digital skilling campaigns. So there's one called SMB Vidyalaya, and we've created that in India, and that's actually specifically around skilling SMB customers with digital cloud skills. So when you say how can SMBs approach it, the first thing to do would be to look for programs that are low cost or free in a lot of instances. AWS has all sorts of free training available for teams on cloud certification. These are the type of tools that can easily be accessed by SMEs online, and also programs of work with ourselves and with our partners that help our customers just to upskill and start that journey. And equally, understanding a bit about the costs. So, what we know about costs and the way in which cloud works for you is that whilst always there's a challenge that we don't have enough money or our teams aren't upskilled, but what you find is once you implement a cloud infrastructure model versus an on-premise infrastructure model, typically we see our customers saving between 30 and 40% in their operating costs, which is a really material saving, especially for SMEs who are very cost sensitive. So there's a lot to be said around getting the right training, trying to get it free, and learning about the cost savings that you can get from moving to the cloud.
Great. So there's a lot for SMBs to do here then.
There is. I feel like there is. And what I like to do, as I said, is break it down. It doesn't have to be a scary motion. I think a lot of SMEs, and by the way, I'm a former CEO of a bank. It's not just medium-sized businesses. Very large businesses grapple with the same challenges, which is mostly all of us are wanting to serve our customers in the best possible way. And what businesses are realizing, large and small, is that customers want to do business in a digital environment. That has become the norm. So if you know that, and most business owners do, how can you help your own teams to start to understand how to think about that as a methodology and then build it into your business model? So that's part of what we try to do. You know, we're very customer focused. We want to help our customers on the journey.
So, Anna, I would like to understand, you were recently in India, you met a lot of customers, what were some of, and while I understand it is your first visit to India, but, what were some of the interesting insights you got about, how SMBs are using cloud computing, and how the uptake is?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is that the SMEs in India are just doing amazing things. They are just, I loved being in India because the pace of innovation and engagement with the opportunity was just palpable. Everywhere I went, customers were excited. They were talking about digital technology as transforming their businesses. And we had some amazing examples of customers doing great things, customers and partners. So first of all, we spoke, or there is a customer in India, for instance, who is speaking to that first issue, which is how do we reduce operating costs? So we had a customer called Cube Cinema, and they're a media solutions provider. They actually ended up cutting the costs of storing and archiving their films by 80% by using an AWS archival service. Just very simple use cases like that, where we're seeing digital technology being used to really change things like costs. Another customer in India, the Vishaka Group, and they run an industrial house that manufactures flexible pipes and irrigation lines and plastic molding products. Again, not a technical company by any stretch, right?
Very
really traditional. Yeah. But they have an SAP application, which is an IT infrastructure cost for them. They moved from on-premises to AWS, which allowed their teams to start focusing on their core business and not spend so much time on their IT infrastructure. It's another thing that happens when you move to the cloud. And they were able to reduce their CapEx by adding services and like completely changing the way in which they looked at their costs model. So again, traditional businesses doing great things using the cloud. My favorite one in India is Have More. And they are
ice cream.
Everyone loves ice cream. And they, again, you would just think, okay, so why are they digital? But of course, they must be. And what happened during COVID for them was they had, their 75-year-old ice cream brand in India. Everybody knows them. They actually had to go into rapid expansion mode. And they also migrated one of their services, their SAP services, to AWS because they had to be able to scale and do that reliably and do it in a secure fashion. So they did that. They faced zero downtime as a result of it and were able to actually increase their availability of their product during COVID as a result of having moved to the cloud. And again, supply chain issues, all these traditional industries that are benefiting from changing the way that their IT infrastructure works, which you wouldn't think, oh, okay, they're a technical company, but they are, and they're using technology really innovatively. So what I would say is Indian companies are doing great things with technology, and in a lot of instances they're leading. They're actually first movers in this space. So yeah, I have nothing but respect for the Indian business community. I love how they are embracing change.
So Anna, this was from my side. Anything else you would like to add that I might have missed?
Look, I think for me, I think we're hearing a lot about the way that the risks, I guess, associated with going digital. And it's probably important for us to address that with your audience because, there's a lot of kind of fear, particularly where businesses may not be digital. And what we're seeing is that there's a whole bunch of risks that SMBs are facing into now with new regulatory environments, new reporting requirements, which moving to the cloud can really help them with. So we have seen a report by Sophos recently in India stating that identifying and responding to security incidents is actually the biggest public concern for Indian IT managers. And so we have SMBs that don't have a strong security posture, unfortunately, being the target of cyber attacks, which is dreadful for anyone, and even worse if you don't know how to respond to it. So obviously, what we are seeing is an influx of SMBs coming to AWS to talk to us about how to architect a flexible, secure cloud computing environment to ensure that they are not the target of those attacks. And we had really good customer examples there. We've got a wonderful customer called Godrej Housing Finance. And they are a technology-driven loan products business, and they are trying to provide fair, fast and flexible financing for their customers. And they were actually able to reduce the cost of protecting their customer information, which is very sensitive, by 7 times after making a change from third-party commercial solution to our native security services. So we're seeing cost savings, but we're also seeing a benefit on security from moving to the cloud. So we hear a lot about security, and what we try to make sure is that our customers understand that actually moving to the cloud more often than not is a better outcome for you from a security posture perspective, from an IT perspective.
Great. Yeah, so everyone needs, security and more certainty around in these times. So thanks a lot, Anna. It was great having you with us here at FEAspire. Thanks a lot for your time. It was a pleasure.
Oh, it is a pleasure. And as I said, I can't wait to come back to India and see more of that amazing innovation. Thank you for having me.